All right. Denver Bronco.
Oh my gosh. All right, welcome back to the third episode of the D-Class Moto Pod.
We're back.
We've got quite a lot to talk about tonight.
As you can see, a lot has changed.
Well, most people are listening, so for those listening, Hayden's in a sling, got a little bit messed up with his eyeball, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
First, I want to talk about, well, what do we want to talk about first? We've got the injury. We can talk about the ride day. Talk about our new TikTok clout we've got.
Let's talk about that after the injury. I think we should talk about the ride day first, and then we'll talk about the injury.
All right. So Sunday, me and Hayden went out to Indian Mound Motocross Park in somewhere east of here.
Yeah.
And we were having a great time. We'd been there once before. And we had kind of set some goals before we got to the track, and I think we accomplished all those goals.
Yeah, we really did.
I hit 2 new jumps that I hadn't before.
Yep, same.
Hit a triple.
Yeah.
And
hit our first triple.
About ripped my suspension in half.
Yep.
Right after this podcast, we're going to rebuild my front forks because when I showed up, one was kind of leaking, and by the time that I slammed it on the landing of this triple, it was basically didn't have a landing.
Yeah, it was casing it basically.
Well, I mean, we weren't casing it. I was clearing it, but you kind of landed like back wheel first, and
it
was putting some major pressure on my front forks. And by the time we left, both were leaking a lot. So
it was a good time. It was definitely it was an obstacle-filled day. I mean, we first got there. We hadn't been riding. It had been probably a month since we've been on the bikes just because of, like, our schedules. He's been in Florida for, like, Thanksgiving. You know, I've been working on the bike a lot. Like, I couldn't ride a lot due to either the weather. Like, every weekend it was, like, either raining or something was going on. And we just had, like, obstacles, and either one of us wasn't in the area at the time, and we didn't really go ride. So there's like this month where we
also the rain.
Yes,
there was like 1 or 2 weekends this past month where we could ride, and it would just downpour in Tennessee, and every track would be closed.
Yeah, and so we had to like work around that kind of stuff, and then that gave us more time to like put stuff on the bikes. So we got some like brand new graphics slung on the bikes, and they're looking freaking mint. So
I put a new radiator on my bike. I'll throw up a photo. My old one was like
bad,
mangled.
Yeah.
And that was a whole ordeal to get a new radiator.
Yeah.
I ordered a radiator from eBay. They sent me the right side and it was the guy's fault. I mean, I don't want to like blame him. The guy was like super nice about it, but he accidentally sent me the wrong side radiator.
Yeah.
And then he was like super nice about it. He was like, yeah, eBay just needs to send you this return label. And it took about a month for eBay to finally agree to send me a return label.
Yeah,
it just took forever. And then finally got a return, got my refund, and got the right size radiator. But
that was kind of a mess. But we got the bikes. Getting the bikes prepared to go ride this weekend was almost like, well, at least for my bike, we almost didn't make it. I bought a rear shock rebuild kit, rebuilt my shock, and there was zero dampening whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll throw up a video of that too.
I took a video of that. It was so
hilarious.
Frustrating. I fought getting this shock put back together. I was either bleeding it wrong, or I mean, I had it installed correctly. Everything was put together correctly.
Well, I think that puck was upside down.
Yeah, but I really don't think that made a difference in what happened. I mean, it could, but I really don't.
We posted in a Honda CR's Facebook group about what was going on, and a lot of people were, without even seeing the insides, we're saying, I think the puck might be upside down. So
yeah, TBD. I also probably didn't bleed it correctly, but I don't know. We were up till like 10 o'clock trying to get this rear shock sorted, and we both kind of looked at each other and were like, this isn't going to happen tonight.
Well,
we had
rebuilt it twice, I think. And then the bladder got stuck.
Yeah, we couldn't get the bladder. We couldn't get the bladder out of the reservoir, the place where you like charge the nitrogen. And so we're like, I'm pulling on this thing like dang near as hard as I can, and it's not coming out. And I'm frustrated. I'm like, dude, I can't. I'm not getting this out tonight. There's no way. And then Connor's like, all right, we know what we need to do. We both looked at our buddy David's bike, who was just kind of sitting there in the corner, which hasn't been used also in like a month and a half. And so we were both like, all right, let's do this. So we swapped the rear shocks over from his bike to my bike. And we got my bike packed together, loaded up the trailer, and then we head out. The next morning to go rip some dirt bikes. But dude, I was so frustrated with that rear shock, man. It was just like,
well, and David's shock worked great. So.
Yeah, David's shock did work great.
But David kind of needs a shock back, so
yeah, we gotta get that rear shock taken care of. So I think I'm gonna have somebody rebuild it, valve it for my weight and stuff, so that way I got like a solid rear shock. Because the front's pretty solid. I don't think I'll have to do a lot with the front for now. I'll just send the rear off. But yeah, we had a great day riding. We showed up. We were the first ones at the track because we were like that excited to go ride, and it was open. So we show up to the track. We unload the bikes, and the guy was literally just getting done prepping the track, and we're the first ones out there. And holy cow! I mean, I've only been on a handful of tracks, maybe that weren't prepped, like ready.
Yeah,
like
I was the very first person on the track,
and it is chaos.
It was like, I mean, it was probably plowed like at least 6 inches deep of just like deep.
Yeah. Tennessee dirt was just, and it's like, it's almost like clay. It's just super tacky. It was super tacky. It was like great for ruts and speed. And like the traction was great all day. Like I never really had issues with traction, but there was like a ton of like tackiness in it. And it was just,
well, I was washing around I went 2 laps, and then I decided I'm just going to go back to the trailer and wait for someone else to break this track in.
Yeah.
So I waited. The guy that owned the track, dude, rips.
That guy flies.
And he wrote in some really good lines. And then, I mean, after 15 minutes, we went out there and it was like perfect the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I would say once it got worked in, the track conditions were like super solid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like honestly, that's some of the best dirt we've been on. Plenty of traction. Bike would just go. I
did get roosted the worst I've ever gotten roosted in my life.
Yeah.
Hayden, he wasn't wearing a chest protector at first, and he came back complaining. I was like, really? You got roosted? I haven't had anything.
Blasted
and then
in the chest.
Probably 20 minutes later, I was out on the track, and I jumped a big tabletop right beside this guy. And right after that was the triple that I've been wanting to hit. And I was thinking, okay, I know this guy's gonna hit the triple, so I'm just gonna follow his speed.
Yeah.
And I'll hit it with him. And as soon as he landed like right in front of me on the tabletop, and he sent an entire pile of dirt into my chest, and it like blew me back on the bike. And I had to stop, like I had to pull over and stop on the track and like recatch my breath. It literally hurt through my chest protector.
That's crazy, man.
It got my hands, got my arms, got my knees.
Dude, that sucks. The roost is like, because we're new at riding, or at least this year, we haven't really been in like behind the pack, or like we haven't really experienced roost.
Well, also a lot of the tracks that we ride are
pretty dry.
Yeah, pretty worn in to where it's just dusty. There's not really much to roost.
Yeah. So today or yesterday or whatever, or what was that, Sunday?
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, 2 days ago. It was pretty tacky, but the overall day was fantastic. I had a blast. Couple minor incidences throughout the day where we just kind of like tipped over, just kind of getting wild through the ruts and stuff like that. But I guess I'll kind of lead into the injury. So it's like the end of the day. Track closes at like 3-ish, 3:30 or whatever.
I'd already decided I was done riding for the day because my front suspension was bottoming out twice every lap. And I was like, I don't want to break something. Yeah. So I mean, I'd already ridden for like 4 hours. I was like, all right, I'm just going to go chill and watch people ride for the rest of the day. Yeah. And then I'm sitting there
watching me. I keep telling myself I'm following this pack of guys and I'm keeping up relatively well. Like they haven't quite checked out of like distance wise yet. And I'm kind of hanging with them a little bit. And I'm like, I'm starting to push because I just let them go by because they were the faster group. And I was hanging back with one of the guys who, obviously like there's some really fast 450s out there, but I was keeping up with this guy on this 250 and I was like really pushing myself. And I'm like, all right, one more lap. And my hands, like I drive a 2000 CR125 and that thing rattles you to death. And my hands are really fatigued from just like gripping the bike. and then gripping the bars. And like I can feel it. I'm like, all right, like I only got like 1 or 2 laps left in me, and I would go around each lap and be like, all right, this is my final lap. All right, this is my final lap. All right, this is my final lap. And there's this one spot on the track that I had been kind of like clearing this double. It was like a 2-part landing. It wasn't like a true double, but it was just really strange the way the landing was set up. Like you could land kind of like on top of it, and then you could jump over and down to like the second landing. So it was almost like a step up, step down kind of deal. And I had tried like clearing it most of the day, and I finally had got it. But the last lap, I kind of like lost my focus or whatever. And somebody had gone down next to me before the jump, and I kind of like glanced over and lost focus for a moment, and then wasn't like set going over the jump. So I went off the jump, and I'm supposed to be going towards the right. Well, I started going straight instead of, towards the right. And when I came down in a soft part of the mud on the track where nobody had been riding all day. So it was like thick packed, not untouched mud, and my front wheel locked and endoed because I'd overshot the jump, the landing. And when I landed front wheel, it just bars turned, slid, my chest hit the front bars, the back end of the bike started coming over, and all I remember is hitting my face on the ground first. That was the very first thing that hit the ground was my face. My face hit the mud and the ground, and then the next thing I'm like, dude, I hit the ground first. Where's my bike? And then the next thing I feel is 185-pound dirt bike landing on my head and my shoulders. And I'm just like crunched into the ground. And I'm just like sitting there like, oh, and the bike just finally like releases and flips back out onto the track. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude, I think I just broke my shoulder. I was hurting, and I like scramble off the track, and I get down on my hands and my knees, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure got the wind knocked out of me too, because I was like wheezing. I was like, ah, ah, like down on the track.
It sounds like wind was knocked out of you.
And the guy next to me is like, dude, are you okay? You're okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea if I'm okay, because it's like, 10 seconds after, and I'm like, dude, there's something wrong with my arm. I have no idea. And I'm just sitting there like, bro, I think it's broken. I don't really know yet. Connor comes. I see Connor like, he's like trucking it over here.
I was chilling at the trailer.
Yeah, you were ways away.
Sitting in my chair. And then I'm kind of watching Haiden go around, and I see him go over this jump, and I just see there's like a couple jumps between us. And I just see a back wheel in the middle of the air. And I was like, oh no. And so I stand up, and I see Haiden stand up. I was like, oh, he's fine. And then I see him like run over to the side of the track and go down on all fours. And I was like, oh no. So I just started running over there.
Yeah. He's
with my phone. I was like, just in case you need to call 911.
Yeah. I was messed up, dude. It was such a weird feeling because it all happened almost in like slow motion when I look back on it, and I remember the bike landing on my head and my helmet compressing and then releasing the pressure, and I was like just waiting for like too much pressure on my head and it just like pop or whatever. But whoa, it was definitely a good scare. Like I was hurting pretty bad. So I'm like, all right, I need to get back to the truck. We're gonna get to the hospital or something, because I'm obviously hurt. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm like, do I have a broken collarbone? Because I've seen so many people like break their collarbone for like smaller impacts, and they just fall off their bike and land wrong, and their collarbone's broken. So I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure I broke my collarbone. And I'm feeling it, and I'm like, all right, it doesn't feel broken. Like I can feel the whole bone, and I'm feeling my shoulder. I feel like this small kind of like divot on the side of my shoulder, and I'm like, oh man, my shoulder is obviously sitting lower than my left shoulder. And I'm like, all right, we need to go to the hospital. Like, we need to get this checked out, because I would hate to have like a broken shoulder or a broken collarbone and just not do anything about it. So we load up in the truck. Connor loads everything. Yeah, well, first, the guys that own the track come over on a side-by-side, and Hayden's, at this point, he's kind of standing up, and they're like, you good? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, you want to ride back to your car and the side-by-side? And Hayden's like, no, I'm good.
And I was like, dude, why didn't you take a free ride? And
No, oh yeah, when I went
you're like,
down,
I'm getting my own bike off the track.
yeah, I was like, my pride's talking at this point, and I'm like, yeah, I want to ride off on my own bike. So Connor like hops on my bike, and I hop on the back of it, and he drags me out of there essentially. But holy cow, man, that's my first big wreck. That's definitely the biggest wreck I've ever been in. That's the hardest I've hit the ground. That's the hardest I've been landed on. Is just overall not 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yeah. So I loaded all the bikes up, and then Haiden wanted to go to the hospital that was an hour and a half away. So obviously he wasn't in that much pain.
The pain didn't hurt unless you move it. So like sitting here, pain's kind of low, but as soon as you start moving any of it, oh dude, it hurts pretty good. So we hop in the car, Connor's driving, and he and I are just cracking jokes about, ridiculous stuff. I'm going to get paid. Insurance is going to cover this and that, whatever, just random things. And we're thinking, we're on the way to the hospital right now, and we're just kind of like casually driving. And I'm wondering, like, maybe we should go to a hospital that's closer, like an actual emergency room that's
Well, I think I asked you like 3 times, like, you sure you don't want to go to a closer hospital? You're like, no, I've been to this one in Mount Juliet. I want to go to that one.
Yeah.
Then like 30 minutes in the drive, I was like, yo, you sure you still want to go to the hospital?
I was really contemplating it. I was really contemplating it. But at the end of the day, I was like, let's just go to Mount Juliet and get it looked at, because I've been there before, unfortunately, and they take care of me pretty well. And there was 0 wait. But I'll let you tell the story of when we rolled up to the ER.
So we get to the ER. Haiden wants to like film a TikTok. So he obviously, the whole time I'm like,
he's fine.
Is Haiden really injured? Because he wants to go to this hospital. It's 2 hours away.
Yeah.
He wants to be filming TikTok. So we filmed this, like, if y'all seen Hot Rod, the scene where he's at the hospital and he's like, points at the trash can. He's like, hospital? Trash can. So you can look at that on our TikTok if you know what I'm talking about. It's really only funny if you've seen Hot Rod 100 times like we have. But
yeah.
Well, we did that, and then I went to park my truck.
There's nobody else at the hospital.
Yeah, so
it's pretty empty right now.
So I got to park the truck with the trailer that has the dirt bikes in it, take up like 4 parking spots. I go in, Hayden's, we go back to the room, and then we're sitting there for like 5 minutes, and the security guard comes in. He was like, sir, we need you to move your car. You're taking up a lot of spaces in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. So I assume it's like, must be pretty crowded or something. I walk out. There's like 100 free parking spots. And so I was like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll move. So I have to go park like on the road.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, but I was like, all right, this isn't really an issue, but okay. Yeah. So then we get back. They take some x-rays of Haiden.
The x-rays suck big time. They had to move me for different positions for the x-ray. And they had me like move my arm and stuff. And I'm just like, like this sucks so bad. Something's got to be broken. So the guy takes the x-rays. We wait like 15 minutes, get the results back. Yeah, so you don't have anything broken. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like such a pansy. But also like, I don't know. I wasn't really in that much pain, to be honest. It was only pain when I move it. So I guess that would make sense, but clearly there was other issues going on, like with muscle and tendon. So that still has to be looked into, whether or not I like tore a muscle or anything like that. So the road to recovery still, it's going to take a little bit, but I think it'll be a lot shorter of a recovery than if I were to like physically break a bone. So I'm kind of glad for that.
So we were supposed to race this weekend at Scrub and Dirt in Georgia. I'm still planning on racing. On the last podcast, I talked about how I was supposed to race that weekend. They ended up canceling that race. So we're racing, or at least I'm racing this weekend. Hayden's going to come and cheer me on.
Oh yeah, dude. I'll be your pit board.
Be my mechanic with one arm.
Yeah. Go faster.
So hopefully we'll have some stuff to talk about from the race.
That'll be fun.
And then we might do a little bit of collaboration with some other people. Do you want to go ahead and get into that?
Dude, yeah.
So here's what happened. So when me and Haiden were at the hospital, he jokingly was like, so he walks in full dirt bike gear on, and the nurse is like, oh, what happened? Did you have a fall? And Haiden was like, I had a sewing accident. And the lady's like, okay. And so we were just sitting and Hayden was like goofing off, like filming this. We were filming this video. He's like, oh yeah, I was just watering my plants and my arm popped out of its socket and here I am. And I like zoomed down to him in like muddy dirt bike boots. So I posted that video on TikTok and it kind of blew up yesterday.
Yeah.
And if you're on TikTok and you're listening, then you probably know who these people are. So we were starting getting a bunch of comments and then the legendary 109 Nate comments, yo, let me be on your podcast.
100%.
So I responded, I was like, dude, let's 100% set it up. I was like, we can set it up over Zoom. And he replied back, I'll fly to Nashville. I was like, what?
That is so cool.
So we might have 109 Nate on the podcast soon.
That would be awesome.
Dude is like
a legend.
The TikTok troll of the century. He's hilarious. And he wants to be on our podcast and we're going to try and make it happen. Yeah. And then after that, this guy named Tyler Films, who if you're on TikTok, he's the guy that does all the stoppies on his Kawasaki. He messaged me on Instagram and was like, yo, dude, if you ever want any guests on the podcast, I'd love to do it. So we're working on setting that up too. Mm-hmm. And then after that, Michael from Huckett Films, he commented on the video I posted of Haiden and is giving the update from the hospital. He was like, yo, I'd love to be on your podcast. Hope y'all heal up soon. And he lives down in Georgia, and we've been messaging today about trying to set something up either in Georgia or at a track over New Year's. We're going to try and get a podcast in with him. Yeah. So yeah, we're excited about the potential collaborations with some different creators on the internet. I feel like obviously it would be awesome to get like some superstar, like a Jet Lawrence or some pro rider on the podcast. Yeah. But I think it's also cool how on TikTok, especially, there's this group of people who they're not pro riders. They're just dudes that hang out. Yeah, they love making dirt bike content, and they're fast. They're growing the sport. They're blowing it up, and we would love to have the opportunity to get to talk to them and hear what they're about and hear why they love the sport and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're going to kind of try and do with this podcast in the immediate future. Mm-hmm. Who knows where it'll go from there, but I'd love to be able to get to talk to some of those dudes. So yeah, ton of great influence in the industry. There's like, I can't even count how many awesome people there are out there who are just so willing to, help out, whether it's when we go to a race or go to a track. There's usually always somebody there who's just like super genuine, awesome. And we've been kind of discovering that over like social media. There's also fantastic people just willing to help out or in any way, shape or form, or want to be a part of this. But I love growing this kind of, this kind of podcast or movement or whatever. But yeah, this is just super cool, man. This has progressed way faster than I thought it would. I mean, this is only the third episode, but I don't know. I feel like this could go somewhere pretty fun. So we'll kind of see where it goes. Yeah, I told you. So like I mentioned in the last episode, my job's producing podcasts and stuff, and I was like, dude, we're gonna make this legit. We're gonna do a video with it, post some clips on social, and we're going to try and blow it up. So hopefully we're headed in that direction. I think collaboration is the best way to do that. And for sure, we get to hopefully have some pretty cool guys on coming up soon. So hope y'all are excited to hear about those. That's the plan. Take a little break. Yeah. Armadillos keep digging little holes in my backyard. All right. Welcome back. A little break. Next topic. Thanksgiving was fantastic. Not gonna lie, a little optimistic going into Thanksgiving, or maybe not optimistic. Maybe it was more concerned that we weren't gonna have a whole lot of fun. Well, so just you and me. We went to this Friendsgiving thing, which is basically where you and your friends get together and just make a potluck, basically. Yeah. But we knew some people there, but me and Haiden were the last to eat because leaders eat last, according to my college professor. So a little humble brag. We ate last. Yeah. And we walk into the dining room and there's not a single table or a single seat left at the table. Yeah, the whole table's full. And both tables were full. One of them was a kiddie table. Let's be honest, that wasn't really much of a table, but both tables were all full. And so there's a couch in the other room. We both go and sit on the couch, and YouTube is pulled up on the TV right in front of us. Super dangerous. And so Hayden goes, you want to just watch some dirt bike racing? So we throw on this live stream. So I guess the Monster Energy Supercross YouTube channel has a constant live stream of old races.
Yeah.
So I pulled that up and we started watching races while everyone else was. It was honestly like the most like unsocial thing we could have done.
Yeah, because everybody's over here eating dinner and like socializing, and Connor and I are just eating turkey and watching motocross like on our own, completely doing our own thing and not paying attention to anything going on there. I don't even think we made conversation with anybody really.
There were a couple people that actually came in and started watching it with us, like random people. And well, our friend Jess watched it with us. We already knew her, but
yeah, Jess actually turned out to be pretty cool.
She was like, "Yeah, I rode dirt bikes growing up." We're like, "What?"
Yeah, that was kind of I would never would have guessed that in a million years, but she kind of surprised both of us. And
but she is
turned
from
out to be pretty
California,
cool.
Where apparently everyone rides dirt bikes. So
yeah. But anyway,
yeah, it turned into a great night.
Yeah,
super unsocial night. We drank some sparkling apple cider.
And destroyed a plate of food.
And watched Ryan Dungey and Ken Roxon on a Suzuki and a bunch of old videos.
Yeah. It was super nostalgic. Speaking of nostalgia, reminds me of, I don't know, kind of people that I watched growing up. Seeing that was honestly really reminiscing of the old days and the people that I used to watch growing up.
So like what era were you like getting into watching like motocross and supercross?
I think for me,
like who was the top guy when you first started getting into it?
So when I started getting into supercross or just like motocross in general, Ken Roxon was always at the top Suzuki rider, and I was a big Suzuki fan.
This was after he was on KTM too, then, right?
Yes. So right after KTM, he jumped on Suzuki and he rode for Screaming Eagle. For those years.
Team.
Yeah. And it was really cool. I was a huge Suzuki fan, big diehard Ken Roxon fan.
Why were you, I guess you had that Suzuki bike.
Yeah.
Is that why you were a Suzuki fan?
I was a big Suzuki fan because of the bike that it was my first ever dirt bike I ever like purchased or whatever. It was the Enduro Dual Sport. But that was kind of like the big push into the sport. And I just remember watching Ken Roxon. You know, he was this younger guy at the time, and he was killing it in the sport. And his style was just unmistakable. Ken Roxon's flow was just, you know, it was super cool, and I really clung to that. And watching him race, I don't know, it was just somebody that I always had looked up to, and I got all of his, you know, merchandise and stuff like that, and got to talk to him that one time at Redbud on the 4th of July. That was definitely like one of the coolest moments ever. But yeah, those kind of people really influence you growing up as a kid and really pushes you to get into the sport on your own. And I don't know, they're the kind of people that you look up to because they're solid people. And they just kind of mold you. I don't really know how to describe it, but they're just good people.
So one of my big influences growing up was definitely Ricky Carmichael. I would say that, so you were talking about Ken Roxon. I would say that when I really got into the sport was like, I guess 2 eras before you. Because before Kenny Ryan Villapoto was kind of the dude. And then there was like kind of a gap where it was like Chad and James, and then Ricky was like the man when I first started getting into it. And I remember I told that story about how I got to high five him at Supercross, and then they went down and they played Hero by the Foo Fighters. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my moment. But yeah, that was really when I started getting into the sport. It was really right when everything transitions from 2 strokes to 4 strokes. I was actually watching a couple of weeks ago. I woke up with a headache, and I was like, I'm just going to watch YouTube until I get through this headache. And I watched the Bar to Bar from 2006, which if you've never seen that, if anyone's listening,
completely solid.
Get on YouTube and just search Bar to Bar 2006. It is the most gnarly season, so that was the first year I ever went to Supercross. I didn't realize how gnarly the racing was that year. It was basically Ricky, Chad, and James all duking it out
for the title.
And it was, Ricky had already been in the premier class for a few years. Chad had been there, and James was kind of coming in and disrupting all of this. And it's definitely, I mean, it's like 2 hours long, but it's 100% worth watching.
Oh yeah.
So I watched that the other day, and that was when I realized, this was because I remember basically in bar to bar, they just go through like basically like a summary of each stop of Supercross. And when they got to Atlanta, I remember I was like, oh, that's the track that I remember seeing my first race ever at. And I still remember specifically Chad Reed coming through, James Stewart coming through. He had just changed from 259 to number 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Brown was there as the only 2-stroke, as far as I remember. And it's weird. I guess I was in 5th grade when I went to that, but I still remember like these super specific things. And when I saw that track on bar to bar, I was like, holy cow, that's the first race I went to. So yeah, that was when obviously Ricky and James were in kind of the heat of it. And I remember Ricky retired, and then James is kind of like the man the next year. And I remember Red Bull put out this was like back when nowadays every rider has some sick Red Bull edit, something cool put together with this huge production budget. Back then, guys didn't really do that. And I remember James Stewart came out with this sick video with all these slow motion of him doing whips at his facility. If you just search James Stewart Red Bull video, I'm sure it's still one of the first ones to come up.
Yeah.
But it was like super defining for that time because people weren't really doing that. And I remember seeing those videos like, oh, I'm going to be just like this one day. And yeah, I would say, I mean, Ricky and Bubba were kind of the two guys that really influenced me as I was getting into the sport. And they were like the guys that I was really pulling for. And then from there, I would say Trey Canard was probably my favorite rider until he retired. I think he retired in like 16 or 17 or something, but he was always one of my favorite guys.
Didn't your mom throw away one of his posters or something like that?
No, that was Zach Osborne.
Oh,
so
that's right, Zach.
When I went to that race, I guess it was either my first race or my second race I ever went to. We met Zach Osborne, and he was like not really very well known at all back then. The only reason we met him was because my buddy, we always go to the races with, his last name was Osborne, and he was also number 16. So he was like, oh, I want to get this guy's autograph. And he like wasn't really that big of a deal at all back then. So I got 2006, 2007 signed Zach Osborne poster. Then my mom threw it away. And now I'm like, I mean, it probably wouldn't be worth anything, but it'd be super cool to have.
Yeah, super sentimental. You got like almost rookie season Zach Osborne.
Yeah. And now that he's like, so he just announced he's retiring, but I mean, he won the outdoor championship last year, and he's like, he's been one of my top favorite riders for a while. Just, I feel like his, I don't know, his character seems like super solid. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what Supercross and motocross was like when I started getting into it. So
I would say you definitely came from a more structured background. Your riding style and places to ride was a lot more set in. Like you had actual tracks to go to.
Yeah.
Another person that was like super influential was Ronnie Mack. Like when I got in, Ronnie Mack was this big time, like rider, and we're always dragging feet on the ground, looking like an absolute goon out there. And the way we just like, wah, 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 just like bouncing off our bike, just
acting like an idiot.
Yeah. Complete fools. So
Trey Canard, he's, some people say that he is Ronnie Mack sometimes. I think I know who Ronnie Mack is, but Trey Canard was like one of the first people to do one of those goon videos.
Yeah.
I think he sent it to me the other day.
Oh yeah.
Where he was like jumping, like bouncing. Yeah. It was him when he was on a 250 Honda still.
Yeah.
And he throws off.
He throws
and,
does
whip. This crazy like head shake off one of the triples.
He's like throws it, and he's like,
I mean, I'm sure everyone that's listening to it seen it. But it's hilarious. And then he like stops in the corner and like,
yeah,
I don't know. He does all this stuff that back then was just like people didn't really make fun of that. And then he came out with this video at their test track, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, but old school dirt bike stuff. Probably one of the only reasons why I haven't sold my 2-stroke is just because it's so sentimental with some of the older riders. And
Haiden got these sick new Haiden finally put graphics on the bike.
Yeah, Connor convinced me to put graphics on my bike, and look at that. Now
and
I'm putting
it
graphics
looks like
on.
Literally Ricky Carmichael's factory Honda 2-stroke now. So
looks pretty sweet. I'm pretty hyped. It looks cool. So I'm just gonna shout out to Shout out to Woody the Woodpecker for hooking me up.
All right. I think it's about time to wrap up this podcast.
Yeah, I think so. We got plenty of good stories and stuff to share. We got awesome stuff coming your guys' way, whether it's content or just shenanigans.
Yeah, make sure you check us out on TikTok.
We're all over it.
At DClassMotoPod. We're also on Instagram at DClassMotoPod. Also on YouTube. So if you're listening, you can watch this whole
Spiel.
podcast if you want to see our dumb faces for 30 minutes or an hour or however long we've been going. But yeah, feel free to check us out. We very much appreciate any follows or likes or whatever.
You guys have been awesome. Just love the support. Be getting like comments.
Yeah, I keep texting Haiden. I'm
great
like,
people.
Yo, someone just commented saying they listened to the podcast.
Yeah, I've been in bed all day today resting because like 2 days after you ride is usually the day you're the most sore, and my muscles are just like super
plus,
achy
you took
sore
a little
today.
bit more of a dinger than
I also got folded like a pancake. So I've been sitting in my bed all day, and like every other hour I get a message from Connor, dude, you'll never guess who just messaged me. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, like how do I get more elevated from each time he texts me?
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are awesome, and I really appreciate everybody out there who's been giving this podcast a listen. Can't say thank you enough. You guys are the reason we're here. So
yeah, we got some big things coming. We got those collabs hopefully coming up that we mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully we'll have some talk about the race that I'm in on Saturday.
Yep.
And then me and Haiden were also talking about potentially doing a giveaway here in the future.
You better.
No idea what that'll look like, but we'd love to be able to get enough support to where we can make that financially make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, drop us. I know it sounds like super cheesy like Logan Paul, but drop us a like and a follow.
Smash that subscribe button. Drop a follow.
Yeah, do all that, and it really helps us out. So we appreciate y'all, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Definitely. Peace.
See ya.